I'm Jenny Fern. Welcome to my library. I'm a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Oh my god, I tipped them over. I'm recovering from a gnarly cold. I am finally feeling a little bit thawed out. I slept for 2 full days. Sorry if I sound a little weird or seem low energy. I'm trying to pep myself up by looking at books that I really want to read this year. That is the whole concept of this video. We are going to be somewhat building a TBR for ourselves and also doing a check-in. Hey, don't play with the tripod. Oh, you're in kitty jail now. I think you've messed up the framing a little bit. Kitty jail. A few months ago, I had a video that was going through all of the TBRs that I had set for myself during 2024 and looking at how successful I'd been and unsuccessful I'd been at reading those books. I always give myself way more to read than I know I'm going to. And I picked from those books the books that I really wanted to have read to assign to myself in the year 2025. So I want to do a check-in on those books first, and then I want to pick and choose the books that, instead of really wanting to have read in 2024, I really want to read in 2025. Kind of build up a full list of what I am really wanting to get my hands on this year. I had a bit of a bad reading month last month, and I'm trying to kind of reinvigorate the spirit. I'm trying to pep myself up, get myself excited. I have actually been quite excited about reading recently because it's the only thing I could do on Friday because our internet was down and I was so sick I couldn't get myself to putting it back up. Now let's go through all those books. From my list of books that I really wanted to have read last year, I had Dubliners by James Joyce, and I haven't picked this up yet, but I've been reading so many more short stories this year that I feel that it's inevitable that I'll get to this. Then I have God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. I feel like I could pick this up kind of soon, but I have not yet picked it up. Lilies and Other Stories by Ru Ji God, I cannot, with my nasally ass voice, attempt to pronounce a Chinese name. My kitten is eating the tripod. Stop it. I haven't picked this up at all, but I am so interested in it, and I could very well convince myself to pick up a story from this very soon. I know I'm saying that for everything. The Hidden Side of the Moon by Joanna Russ. The Hidden Side of the Moon. I have started this. I read the first short story. I don't know if I always knew that this was short stories, but it is. And I read the first one and it is so impeccably written. I thought it was extremely well done. I've been reading a lot of short stories this year, and so it, I think, has become quite easy for me to recognize when it's just this is okay, to really, really well thought out, really well done, and the first story in this was extremely good. But I don't want to read short fiction too quickly, because then everything will run together, and that's not really the point. Silent World by Jacques Cousteau. Recently, I have been watching all these videos about ocean creatures. I was watching videos about colossal squid and sperm whales, and I can feel that draw to the ocean really coming to fruition with my feverish brain just being entranced by oceanic visages. I'm intrigued, but honestly, not soon. Helen Darkest Children, I know every time I read the plot summary for this, I'm like, I must read this. This seems so up my alley. But I don't really hear anybody talk about it. It does seem a little bit thick, so I do get intimidated by it. I will make a point to read this before the end of the year. Long After Midnight. This is also short stories, and I have read up to page 30. I think I read 2 short stories from this collection. I finished one. Are you proud of me? I'm proud of me. I finished The Symbiotic Planet by Lynn Margulis, and I did a whole reading vlog on this, and it's up now. Not a lot of people have watched it so far. Give it a watch. It's quite long, I realize, but I had a lot of things to say. And then we get to one where I think my thoughts have changed maybe a little bit. That's For the Loved One by Evelyn Waugh. I really thought I would like this, and now I'm really not convinced that I would like it. I tried to read a little bit of it. I had no idea what was happening at the beginning of this. I just think that Evelyn Waugh and I may not be compatible, but I should give it another shot just to see if that's true. I just so loved the illustration on the cover, which I believe is by Quentin Blake. Oh, for copyright reasons, this edition is not for sale in the USA. Interesting. I had like a grouping of, like, if I pick from these, they had been books that I was intending to read last year, and I'm not requiring myself to read them, but I think I would still be interested in reading them soon. So from that list, I had The Shining, and I read The Shining, and I had a wonderful time with this. I did not do a reading vlog on this, but I discussed it pretty thoroughly in my reading wrap-up for February. It seems like it's very long. It's not long. It's not a long read. Gotta drink my orange juice. So now for the fun bit of like me getting to pick out things that I am so excited to have read this year, and also like maybe some more assigning, maybe things that I really want to have read in the year 2025, but I will need extra encouragement to get to that point. The first one I don't actually own, and I think that's one of my biggest barriers at this current point, but not a very big barrier because it's in the public domain and it's super easily accessible. That's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I know she's quite long, but I gobbled up Tolstoy's writing at the beginning of the year. I read his novellas, short stories. They're quite short, but Happy Ever After, or also called Family Happiness, and The Death of Ivan Ilyich. I read both of those, and I love Family Happiness so much. And I've heard that Anna Karenina is kind of like a longer, slightly different version of Family Happiness. So I think I would like desperately enjoy reading Anna Karenina. And it's also like quite an impressive, like, wow, you read Anna Karenina. So I think it would be nice to have that on my like little task list. If we're going down that route, let me share the classics that I would like to have read this year. So the first one I just haven't read yet for no reason, honestly. But I never had a copy of it, and I just picked one up at the thrift store recently, and that's The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. We've got a very ugly sticker on the cover of this one, but I've always wanted to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. What better time than now? I also have 2 books that I didn't have that much interest in at the beginning of the year because I just really did not. I just really did not have that much interest in them. And then I saw both of them at thrift stores after I discussed them in my public domain 2025 video. And I got so many comments about specific books that I was like, I don't know about this. And they really made me more open to the idea of wanting to read these books. So the first one that I'm quite interested in, because I have loved his writing so much in the past, is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. And I heard so many people say that this was like their favorite book and their favorite Hemingway. And I do deeply enjoy Hemingway, so I would like to read this. I am a little intimidated by it, which I know I shouldn't be, because Hemingway is not an intimidating author. This is probably the one that I'm the most intimidated by, because I've heard that it is quite challenging to read. I'm just trying to read what this says. It says something Christmas, 1981. That's The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. And a lot of people said that this was very, very good. And I'm just, again, a little intimidated, because I have looked up if this is, like, objectively a challenging read, and I believe it is. Am I ready for that commitment now? Absolutely not, because I'm still suffering from a fever. Now for some middle grade to kind of even it out. I have one that I am increasingly, every day it seems, that the world is trying to tell me to read this book. That is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I recently saw a video by Katie Marie. She had been making these inferences, reading people, based off of what their favorite book was. And one of those, if your favorite book is this, and she describes a person, and I'm like, that person seems great. I love this description. And so it made me even more excited to read The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I just got this somewhat recently at a book sale, and it's actually quite thick, but it is a middle grade book, so I'm sure it's not very, very lengthy. But it's been quite a while since I've read a middle grade. I have been wanting to read this for quite a long time, since I read other work by Catherine M. Valente, and I also had heard about this book quite a long time ago. The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making. And I would love to finally have read this and just know if this is for me. I think that it'll be excellent, and I think that I'll love it a lot, but I'd like to know soon. I don't want to keep putting it off. I have 2 books now that I have been in the middle of reading and just haven't picked up for months now. The first one I feel like is going to shock you, but perhaps not if you have been paying attention. That's The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. I'm fairly certain I purchased this book because my library rental was due, or I had been reading a sample because my library didn't have it, or something like that. And I was so excited to keep reading it. And then I just never did. But I loved the little piece of it that I'd read earlier. And this was from a recommendation from a commenter, I'm pretty sure. And I hold those comments in quite high regard. So I'd like to finish this. I'd very much like to finish this. Weasels in the Attic, it's just the only thing that I was interested in at the time that I picked it up, because it's in this little collection of books here, which are books that are set aside for a specific reading vlog, which is reading a second book from like a 5-star author. Weasels in the Attic is by Hiroko Yamada, who had written The Factory, which I just absolutely adored. And so I started reading this, and I got quite a ways in. It's so exceedingly short that any bit into this, you're like quite a ways in. And then I stopped. It's like I read it for like 2 days, and then I just never picked it back up again. I think I'm afraid that if I pick it back up again, I'm just gonna finish it. Realizing I forgot one that I actually would really love to read this year as well, which seems a little ambitious, I think, considering everything else that I mentioned in the classics category, and that's A Tale of Two Cities. I would love to read this. These are books that were set aside for the Buzzwordathon cover and word. TBRs, and The Girl Who Drank the Moon is included in that as well. But these books were a part of that. Tale of Two Cities for weapons on the cover. Travels with Charlie, I think, for the word with. I'd love to read Travels with Charlie. I read 2 John Steinbeck stories at the beginning of this year. Both were rereads because I read an absolute ton of John Steinbeck through my required reading in school. I went to public school in California, so you end up reading a lot of John Steinbeck. And I'd read The Pearl and Of Mice and Men. So I would really like to read something that I have never read before from him, and especially because this is nonfiction. I'm so curious more about him as a person now. This book, I just have really enjoyed Stanislaw Lem's writing before, and I would love to read more of his writing, and this is the only additional Stanislaw Lem that I own, and that is The Siberiad. These were already on my list before. We have 2 books that I've already started reading. I have these 2 middle grades. These short story collections that I have very briefly started and need to complete. And these works here. I just remembered one more. I would love to read more Karen Russell because she is one of my favorite writers and I haven't read her for I think over a year now. Oh, okay. Perfect. So I'm gonna add this one, St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves. This is one of the books that I was actually thinking of in addition to Anna Karenina when I started making this video. So this is definitely going on the list. So honestly, a lot of short story collections, which is very in line with the reading year that I'm having, and I'm not mad about it. Oh, you guys, I feel like such trash. I have such low energy that gardening doesn't even help. It makes it worse. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for bearing with my very unappealing sick voice. And thank you for being here with me while I talk about my exciting reading plans for the rest of the year. Sometimes I just have to give myself like a little nudge to actually read the things that I want to have read, to be able to say that I've read the things. Sometimes I need to give myself a little extra motivation, and that's a bit of what this TBR is. And I think so far it's been working. I've definitely been reading a whole bunch of things outside of the books that I really want to have read in 2024. So, I mean, I've only read one, but we're cruising. We're getting there. I don't want to overload myself with too much required reading. I'm sure we'll have a lot of stuff that I wanted to read in 2025 end up in 2026. But I'm going to really try to get to the stuff that I wanted to read in 2024 this year, and I am going to make attempts to read the stuff that I want to read this year as well. And then we'll just forever be catching up until death, I think. Okay. If you enjoyed this, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Consider liking and subscribing, and I will be back again soon.